would you please all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That's the problem with changing locations for every meeting. Okay, I make a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes from 11/20/24. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Ashley?
Mrs. Bendel.
Yes.
Mrs. Hoy.
Yes.
Mrs. Miller.
Yes.
Dr. Sabo.
Yes.
Dr. Schlepper.
Yes.
At this point, I'm going to hand it off to Robert, who's going to introduce our student showcase.
Wonderful. Our showcase tonight is about individualized learning, which is a topic that's very near and dear to my heart. Once upon a time, I used to be a high school English teacher, so that's something that's always been what I would call a call to service when we think about how students access the work that they need to. So I think that's really an awesome topic for tonight. So I'm going to turn it over to Amanda Rossi, and she's going to get us kicked off here.
Thank you. Good evening, Dr. Pinzarski, members of the Board of Education, colleagues, and guests. It is my privilege to be here tonight to share the remarkable example of how we bring the district's strategic vision, inspiring all to grow and thrive, to life through personalized learning. At the high school, we recognize that one size does not fit all when it comes to education. Personalized learning enables us to meet each student where they are and guide them towards rigorous goals through individualized pathways. One of the most exciting examples this year of this work is happening in our 2D art classroom under the guidance of Jill Eisert. You may remember Jill. She presented last spring to the Board of Education. Ms. Eisert has developed systems and protocols that foster both flexibility and focus. These frameworks help students scaffold essential skills, such as participating in critiques, which are vital for artistic and academic growth. By empowering students to reflect on their work and progress collaboratively, they not only achieve technical mastery, but also develop critical thinking and metacognitive skills, key components of success in personalized learning. This evening, you'll hear directly from Ms. Eisert and some of her students, who will showcase how these systems allow learners to stay on track while pursuing rigorous individualized goals. Thank you for your continued support of this transformative work. Together, we are preparing our students to grow into adaptive, resilient learners, ready to succeed in any path they choose. Without further ado, I'll turn it over to Ms. Eisert.
Thank you, Mrs. Rossi. I wanted to thank Amanda Rossi and Jake Miller, our personalized learning coach, for the time and support I needed to help kind of build some of these structures into the curriculum. Really excited about this. We've really been trying to incorporate personalized learning in all of our levels. So I teach 4 different electives. It's drawing, printmaking, illustration and animation, and painting, and portfolio prep, which is our segue into our 2 AP art classes, AP 2D design and drawing. So first I wanted to show you guys where we started. So this was like our structure and supports before I started implementing some personalized learning this semester. So we have unit handouts, we have artist inspirations, we have video resources. So we had a lot of structures already in place, and we were doing a lot of differentiation. The main thing that I wanted to work on is the thing that students engage with the most in our classroom, which is our drawing textbooks. We built custom drawing textbooks a couple years ago as something that students could have a lot of visual guides to kind of guide them and remind them of what we learn in class, to have visual things next to them. So that's really what I'm going to be showing for the first part. First, I wanted to make sure that I could incorporate some personalized learning into these textbooks, but this is going to be the end result. So I have worked on creating painting, an illustration and printmaking textbook, and a drawing 2 textbook. So these all align with the curriculum that we have. And by adding a lot of these other supports, there's lots of choices. So the main thing this reminded me of was those choose your own adventure books from the 80s. I was a big fan, even though I wasn't an 80s kid. But I just thought that was such a simple concept. And if you choose enough choices within a learning plan, you can really create a lot of endless possibilities while still maintaining structure. So this was the first thing that I tried. It was the Drawing One Final. This is a 20-part lesson, so there are lots of little steps. So you can see part 1 and part 6 that I'm showing on this screen. These are places where students could have choice. So whenever you see the little Choose Your Own Adventure sign, that signals to the students throughout all the textbooks we ended up creating that, hey, this is your time. This is your time to shine. This is a part where students are learning a new skill. This is planar and mass drawing. It's kind of tricky. It's learning how to draw with shape instead of line. So this is one where we kind of pulled back on choice. So this really allowed me to use visual guides like we've used before, but then kind of pull it back to allow students to still feel really supported. This would not be the appropriate time to have a lot of choice. We have Gus Bando with us tonight, who is one of our amazing Drawing One students. He's one of our elective students, and I actually kind of had some things going for this, but then I talked with Gus, and this ended up really impacting Gus's work in a really cool way. So we had a lot of students that were early finishers this year for our Still A, for charcoal. So I came up with like 2 options to help them extend their learning. And when I saw Gus's sketchbook, at the beginning of the year, I was like, oh my gosh, Gus, like that one on the left, you just did that from your head. That's pretty amazing from life. So then we had a chat, and Gus really talked about how he loved drawing small, like little sketchy sketches, showing his mark making. So we modified his whole approach for the still life unit. He switched to graphite. He worked smaller. So for his first observational drawing, that was really, really nice work, Gus. Really proud of you. Okay, so kind of moving on. So once we kind of tried those with drawing, we tried to incorporate those with the other levels. So here's an example of our apple challenge in painting. In painting, you're dealing with so many different skills at once. It's like juggling. So on the left, you can see there's like a breakdown of the apple. So that's how you have to see planes of light. And then on the right side, you know, this is a really nice conversational starter for students that might be more expressive, or students that are more of a colorist, might be the middle lane. So it's kind of a helpful thing to kind of show them different approaches, but also to have them lean into the approach that's right for them. Here's some other examples from the painting textbook. So on the left side, those are 2 options for a part that's more mixed media. They do these little things called alter egos, where they build a cabinet portrait and they have to open it up and express something inside themselves. So I gave them some different options for that with little visual guides to keep them on track. And on the right side, there's 2 options for students that have done still lifes or want to do a more extended option. The middle one is a more tonalist value approach, where the one on the right is more of a colorist approach. Kind of following again, it's all choose your own adventure. This is for printmaking. They have to learn the skills before they really have the options. So one of the first things we do in printmaking is learning how to do more graphic styles of work. So they have to understand graphic shading, and they have to understand how a print is going to be layered analog. So after they learn those 2 skills, in later units that involve some of the same ideas as stenciling but aren't quite the same thing, now they have that understanding. So they have these menus that they can work from that are also station-based. So there can be like 5 different ways to do their decal print. There's still a little bit of structure. There's some that are more for beginners and more for intermediate advanced, but it's just to differentiate and still give them options. This is some examples for illustration. This is both to differentiate levels and also to give students options. So these are some step-by-step guides for our environmental design unit. So this year we had some students that came in with some perspective knowledge. So some of the illustration ones did that option on the right instead of the option that was previously more just for illustration 1 on the left. I realized in doing this for more complex processes, this was the planning for their character design unit in illustration, that it would also involve different pre-planning. So these are different pre-planning to-do lists for each avenue that students could take. And this allowed students to try to do more cartoony, more kawaii styles, all the way up to more anatomical style illustrations. So just to give them more options. I think one other thing that building a lot of these resources helped was not just choice, but talking a little bit more about voice. So in this unit, this was a printmaking unit where we build life-size skate decks, and the students do digital work. They do work at the Innovation Center to cut out these giant decals that they're making, and they do handmade traditional printmaking work. So within there, what was kind of cool is I started asking the kids, like, what if or why not? If you have additional ideas, like, let's try to work them into the structure. So these were 2 skate decks from kids that really advocated for other ideas. So the one on the left was work by Kaylee Steck from last year. Kaylee loved working traditionally with handmade medias. So she did about 80% of a board handmade and hand-drawn, but then included all of the objectives still within it in some way. Kaz Kenieski on the right side was much more digital, much more graphic. So still following those same objectives, those students advocated for themselves and what they truly wanted their artwork to look like. With drawing two, designing this textbook was a little bit different. I wanted students to have more broad choices following sort of media. So this is for a pastel unit. Instead of having choices throughout, they get to choose their route for the entire unit. It's the same skills, it's the same layering. They just get to choose between figure and landscape. And for this one, this is much more about expressive mark making. The option on the left is more for larger scale work, and if people want to work in portraiture, expressive portraiture, the left is for perspective. They look like separate units, but the objectives are very, very similar. It's all about mark making and building in the small shadows first, and then kind of working in the more volumetric shadows later. So going up to the advanced courses, these are some of the trackers and things that we're doing to try to individuate for them and to allow them to have choice. So one really cool thing was one of my fellow teachers, Dawn Saracen, was showing these really awesome progress trackers she was working on, and Molly Clodor helped me learn to program the buttons. The students also learned how to program the buttons, which was really fun. They got to have their own little messages. But this is actually a to-do list and a calendar. So this is what we're using currently in AP right now. So each student gets 3 columns. You can see hot pink and lime green at the top. Each color represents a week. So within that week, they have their own individual tasks, and then they have their class tasks. So this allows me to have all the students working on different things at once. We check in on Mondays and Fridays typically to make sure they're on track, but it also allows them to meet any goals that are that they need for the class for AP. So it allows us to do a lot of differentiation and give them lots and lots of options. A couple other things we've been doing in AP for a while is, I call them artistic learner profiles, but it's basically a way for the students to talk about how they learn best in the art classroom. This is also a portfolio reflection that they look at quarterly. It allows them to talk about their goals, and I call it their art wish list. Like, what are the things that you are just so looking forward to doing? Because sometimes those are helpful to, like, see past just AP and College Board and things like that. So that's something we've been implementing for a while. On top of that, I want to really start bringing that, a smaller version of that into the elective courses. It's a little bit more small of a profile. It's a 1-page one, but it's really for the students so they can check and see did they meet their goals, and this is still for them to check periodically. So it's going to be something that we can copy and paste as students go forward into their new portfolios for each elective course the students decide to take. Here's a couple like socio-emotional things that we're starting to do. I think one really major goal was trying to have the students feel more comfortable working together. I know I'm a very quiet art student, so I know for me this was like probably my first challenge going into this, was to try to get a little bit outside myself and help them feel more comfortable like interacting. So one thing we did earlier in the year was have a little sketchbook making workshop, just making actual handmade personalized sketchbooks. They got to choose their style of binding, and they got to choose their themes for their sketchbooks. So a couple other things that we've been doing was really in structuring the beginning of the AP course. One thing I wanted to spend a lot of time on was really working on kindness, empathy, and respect. We have awesome kids and they've always been great, but I really wanted to make sure that we had time before we critiqued each other's work and got into analysis and judgment. I think it takes a level of kindness, empathy, and respect, and just taking time to get to know each other's work before we can talk about someone's work, kind of get to know what it feels like in their shoes from their artist lens. So we created and we worked on doing 5 thematic sketchbooks all together. The students had to vote on the themes, and then the students also created introductory presentations, which was a chance for the students to talk to all the other students about what was important to them, what were the struggles in their art making process, what were the things that they were looking forward to in the year. So that way you really got to hear from the artist first, rather than just jumping right into critique. And then another thing that I worked on building, and it's been really fun to use with the students, is 2 critiquing guides. So this is for the entire course, and it's little like cutouts that we pass out for each critique. So it really gives each critique a specific framing. It allows us to work through all of the skills that one might do in a critique instead of all of them at once. And it's been really nice because I've been able to step back a little bit and see the students really leading critiques, since each critique has a specific framing. We also have one for Port Prep. This one's a little bit more based on objectives, and then for the really specific pieces, and then it's starting to open up towards AP. So we have one of our wonderful AP students here tonight. This is Lauren Brownell. She wanted to speak a little bit about her experience in the AP class and personalized learning and her experience in 2D. I'm just going to post a little bit of her work while she comes on up and speaks.
Hi everyone, my name is Lauren Brownell. I'm a 12th grade student here at Sugar Falls High School. I've been taking classes with Miss Eisert all throughout high school, and I'm currently in her AP drawing class and her portfolio preparation 2D class. I have to start by saying Miss Eisert is an outstanding and dedicated teacher, one who puts in the effort going above and beyond to help her students reach their full potential. Her class helps people come out of their shells and express their unique creative abilities. She helps individualize her teaching so everyone has their own learning experience that lines up with their work. Similar to when I moved from working on smaller projects to larger pieces, she adjusted my learning to fit with how long it takes me to complete a piece. This allowed me to bring forward my best works and brought my art to a level I am proud of. To add on, I am a student who I will admit tends not to track their time well, so I have found it extremely helpful the tools she has put in place that help me with this. For example, she has put in place a personalized tracker that allows us to track where we need to be by certain dates, thus giving time for us to prepare ourselves and get our work in on time. We do critiques in our class that allows peers to look into our work and give feedback. This gives good secondary opinion as to what the work looks like from an outside viewpoint and helps students see if our work is lining up the way it's desired to. She provides tools such as this, so while we are dealing with the stress of things, including other classes, college application deadlines, and finals, the stress level is shortened and the classwork doesn't harm the work needing to be done for other activities. Ms. Eisert has also done an amazing job helping me build my college portfolio for my deadlines, making sure I knew exactly what to do without confusion. To sum up, I believe Ms. Eisert has created a meaningful learning experience for all students who take her class, one that helps pave the way for future success. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. So just to kind of wrap up, I wanted to show what we're doing for the middle class. So this is for portfolio prep. This is for the class between the electives and AP. So this class, I really wanted to focus on providing a lot of options and a lot of advocacy for choice. So this unit can be a little tricky. This is gesture drawing. It's like doing a drawing in like a day or two. This is not a skill as an artist that you do once. This is like a lifetime of learning. Like this is something, for me, it took me 10 years to feel comfortable gesture drawing. So I gave them multiple options for media after we practiced like the initial skill. And it was really cool to see like the wide range. The student on the right, Haley Haddon, did like layered marker drawings. Dem did these really beautiful light little graphites. So it was really cool to see in 1 to 2 days what the students were able to come up with. Going from there, and we're gonna have James Wagner come up in a second. You can come on up, James. One of the units that we cover is a mixed media unit where the students do field studies. And if you've ever been in my class in October, we have a lot of taxidermy. Throughout the room, I've been collecting for years. So the students are drawing from live taxidermy, and they have this checklist. It's like a challenge for different types of medias to go through. It starts off really structured, but I realized this year we had so many ranges of students. We had like illustration students, we had painting students in here. So I really wanted to hit and kind of acknowledge and honor where those students, really their goals were coming from. So this was Haley Haddon's. This was a student that I know is interested a lot in science and medicine and has a really strong background in painting. So Haley went a little bit more in the gouache and painting route. We had another student, let me see, this is Owen Stahl. Owen is a really awesome character designer, and he kind of focused more on using the animal to create character designs of the hawk. And right up here is James Wagner, and I really liked his journey, so he's here to chat about it.
Hi, my name is James Wagner. I'm a 12th grade student at Sugar Falls High School, of course. And I've been in Miss Eizert's classes for the past 3 years at Sugar Falls. I initially came into the class not knowing much, and as I've progressed through the classes, I've definitely had like a little bit of like struggles with like how I'm doing things. More so because I was like having insecurities about how I did my art, and I was always very rigid with how I approached it, always like measuring each and every little line I could. um, and this project really helped me learn how to go a little more freeform, and definitely just how to like approach things from a different angle when not really reaching what I want. Um, I was um, I was inspired for this piece. We had a guest speaker, David King, come in, and he taught the AP class how to do jelly plates, which is a form of printmaking. And so, because all the materials were out, me and another student, under the instruction of Mrs. Iser, we went through and we started learning how to do it. And so it really helped me just add like another level of intricacy to my art, especially for this piece, which I was having a little bit of a hard time. Just you can see some of the parts of it seem a little like rigid, while later on I definitely try to like open up how I approached it. I feel like even in the piece that we're doing right now, which is I'm doing a landscape, I initially had the choice between either doing a illustration where I could maybe add characters and stuff, from doing an oil pastel piece. I've done a lot of illustration and I'm very comfortable with it. And so having that choice was a little bit stressful for me. But in the end, I chose to go the route of oil pastels because I wanted to broaden my horizons with art. And I've actually so far been really enjoying it, no matter how difficult it is. Thank you.
Thank you, James. I think the thing that I love most about working with all these students, they're always willing to take chances. I think especially like Lauren, James, and Gus, they all start off like with one idea and then they are like, let's go for it. And then they try something that is totally unexpected. This style of work is really, really difficult to do, to pull off very confident, very effortless, like vervy sort of styles. And like to combine that with printmaking and mixed media, it's wild to see where James started with his illustrations in like the coolest ways. He's such an amazing renderer, but to see the piece he's doing now where it's super illustrated and like, or super bold and really expressive, it's been like just an amazing journey to watch. Thank you guys so much for having us tonight. And thank you guys, thank you.
Thank you.
That was incredible, like incredible. Jill, can I ask you a question? You know, I am a person who can be somewhat skeptical of the choice aspect. You know, how do you get the foundational skills if there's all this choice built in, and how do you make sure those things aren't falling away? And that was the most unbelievable example of how you blend those two things. How did you create, what was your process when you started creating that? And, you know, what can we sort of learn more generally, you know, about how that worked? Yeah, if you want to come up, or that'd be great. And can we get that posted somehow so everyone can see that? Because that's just incredible.
I think when we started talking about personalized learning at the beginning of the year, I got really excited because kind of like Robert, like I had an amazing teacher my senior year who just really modified and really changed some things, like not all the way, but just to like fit what I needed. And it was so life-changing for me. So I think it just came from a very personal place. I find just having so many structures in place and that's why I found the textbook so helpful, because there's like at least a 50-page textbook now for every course, and there may be like 3 visual options for each thing they can do. So I found I had already collected so many options through the years, and this kind of like it made sense with where to put this together. Also choose your own adventure books. Yeah, just trying to keep it kind of simple because it does get a little complex.
Yeah, it's just fantastic. And Mike, can we stick that on the website somewhere, or is there something? Okay, so, you know, for people at home who couldn't see it, I really encourage you to take a look because it's really remarkable. Thank you.
There's a lot of embedded links in there as well that you didn't click through, but just you'll have the opportunity to look through those. This is my who's right as an educator. She's done a lot of this work over time, but really giving her the opportunity to hone in on that, I knew was going to be to our benefit because she was just able to take all of those, everything that she had been working on and really focus it for her students. And so applying all of that has been phenomenal to see this semester.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, what a cool thing for our students. It was
We're
fantastic.
so lucky.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks. And thank you guys for coming. It was great. And we would love to have you stay, but we understand that, you know, board meetings are not always the most exciting, so we understand if you guys want to go. Thank you. You know, I hope that one day when I say that, people actually stay. I can hope. Okay. So next up is our superintendent report.
Still on it, this would be the presentation of new course
Oh, I'm
proposals,
sorry.
So that one will also fall under Ms. Rossi.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to have to follow that, Amanda.
No, I know.
We're letting her continue.
Yes, I'm just continuing. So each year we take some time to evaluate our current course offerings and provide our staff members with an opportunity to potentially propose new courses to the Board of Education. We look at a multitude of areas where maybe we have gaps or holes, what maybe student interest has been over time, and are really selective about which courses we are bringing to you, right, for evaluation. So for the 25-26 school year, we evaluated 2 proposals and have brought them to you, both of which connect with our strategic plan in, you know, creating and challenging. The first one is our anatomy and physiology and doing an extension to the course that we currently have in place due to the high demand and high interest in that course. We have an overwhelming amount of juniors that have had access to that course now and are looking for an option for senior year. Currently, the anatomy and physiology class is a 2 semester 1 year course. This would look to be an extension of that study and be a 1 semester elective. I'll get there. Okay, great. Under the fearless leadership of Lisa Salyers, the instructor, students would be encouraged to synthesize their knowledge from different systems, spending, you know, as you may know, we had the privilege and the opportunity to have the anatomage table as a part of the course. And then Lisa had planned to include more case studies and clinical scenarios. Students in the anatomy and physiology class this year have already been on numerous field trips, had guest speakers come in, and so providing a lot of that real world and authentic learning has really pushed a lot of those students to want to continue and move forward. So definitely students with an interest in healthcare or the medical field really would be some who would be looking to this pathway. And so I have Lisa with me here if you have any questions for her, but part of what a sample day in Anatomy 2 would look like is direct instruction on systems and organs, continued exploration and connections of the anatomy, physiology, and related fields, labs, dissections, interactions with the table. For those of you who don't know, Lisa went to a training this past summer in California for the table, and while she was there, was able to obtain a subscription for our students, a digital subscription to the Anatomage table on their Chromebooks. So she's pretty convincing and was able to, based on her strategy, right, get us and our students a free subscription for the year. And so it essentially gives them the table like in their pocket, right? So that has been a wonderful tool to extend their learning within the classroom. And then they would be able to, you know, extend or investigate current topics in anatomy and do presentations and peer learning. It is a small group, but definitely I can imagine that would grow over time, knowing that students can access anatomy earlier and earlier.
So what's the typical student pathway to get to this class, and how does it impact their science load and
That's a
state
great question.
requirements?
So depending on where kind of they've started in 9th grade, typically all students have to take biology and then chemistry. So whether that's honors chemistry or college prep chemistry. And then they have an opportunity to extend beyond that. So they have access to, you know, anatomy and physiology. They could take AP biology, they could take AP chemistry, AP environmental. But for students who are really interested in the medical field, anatomy is kind of the way to go. Typically that's, if students have taken biology as freshmen, then they have the opportunity to take anatomy as juniors. And so that's how that track kind of
So
works.
chemistry and biology are prereqs.
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Yeah. Correct. Yes.
That's great.
Any questions about anatomy? Two? No? Okay, great. And then our next course proposal is robotics, which is a very interesting course. We have not offered anything similar to this in the past. That is not a machine that we currently have. I took that picture off the internet, just to be fair. But it is being proposed by our computer science teacher, Valerie Yarmish. Valerie is new to us this year and has had experience as a coach previously in her previous district with robotics. But we have had such a high demand and high interest for robotics throughout the years through computer science. Just given the nature of enrollment in some of our other classes, never had the space or room within our teaching load to offer it. With a lot of students coming from the middle school having already an interest in robotics, we can see a clear pathway to allowing students maybe another opportunity after computer programming, for example. The course introduces students in 9th through 12th grade to the fundamentals of robotics, and it would be through the lens of the First Tech Challenge, which is an organization. And so through there, you'll see within the proposal, I've outlined, you know, potential costs and, you know, what the needs would be as it relates to this course. It definitely does require space, right, to build and time, but we wholeheartedly believe that providing students the opportunity to do this within the school day would garnish far more interest than as an extracurricular activity and could connect clearly to what we are doing as a part of our building mission and vision and the strategic plan. Students will learn the fundamentals as it relates to Java and then focusing on controlling the robots and components of that. So really for a student who has interest in engineering, students who have an interest in computer science, this is definitely an outlet for them. And wanted to make sure that we provided that as an opportunity. And then Valerie is here with us this evening if you have any additional, more specific content-specific questions for her. But definitely integrating advanced coding techniques, which, you know, a lot of our students, our computer science program has been pretty robust over the years, and so we want to just be able to continue that and offer different opportunities for
And
students.
are these semester courses or full year courses?
These are semester courses.
And are there prerequisites for this course?
The prerequisite had, no. There was, it would be great if students have taken computer programming, but that's not a requirement because they'll have an opportunity to. Yes, please.
Java is the coding language that we would use.
Yeah, come on up.
So Java is the coding language that we would use to control the robots. However, there are so many other aspects to building the robot, like we're building a robot from scratch. So there's a lot of engineering components. So students technically don't have to do the coding part. They're going to learn that, but when we're actually building the robot, that may not be like the team that they want to choose to like spend most of their time on. Maybe they're really into fabrication or electrical, so maybe that's what they really want to spend their time on. And then maybe they'll take the Java course, and then they'll get better at Java, and then they'll maybe do the coding part then.
Okay.
So I can see this course, they can literally take it every year because the challenge
Okay.
changes every year.
Okay.
It's like a new robot every
It's a new robot every
semester?
year. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, so after we build a robot, so in the beginning of the year, we'll learn all the different like do like little mini lessons on electronics and fabrication. How do we build this and how do we design a robot? And then in January, well, before that a little bit, they kind of launched the competition for the year, and it changes every year. So then we'll see a video, we'll see like what the robot has to do. Maybe we have to build an arm that grabs something. Maybe we have to build a part that like shoots a ball somewhere. So there's all these different components, and we don't know that in the beginning. And then once we figure that out, then it's like, okay, now we need to figure out what parts we have to build, how we have to build it. And then we go to, hopefully, a competition where we're competing 2 teams against 2 teams. So we'll be partners with some teams where we have to work together against other teams, and that changes like throughout the match. So we get paired with different teams, and then we compete against different teams. And then your goal is to score as many points as you can in that match. And then the alliance that scores the most points wins that match. And then you play so many matches, and then you go to, the championship rounds and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool. We have tournaments here at the Wolstein Center in Cleveland. So if you're interested, it is so awesome. It's basically like an academic team.
Yeah.
It's like a sports team, only with robots.
Valerie, that was going to be my question. We currently don't have a robotics competitive team, correct?
Right, no, we don't.
Okay, because I saw that Orange won in 2023, the state championship. And I'm not saying I'm a competitive person,
I mean,
but if
okay.
this leads
So we
to
had
that.
talked about this for the last couple of years, beyond even before I was here. The majority, and Orange is one of those schools.
Yeah.
Because you can offer this as an extracurricular, but they integrate it into the school day as a course.
Yeah.
And that they've seen the success, and like Valerie was saying, kids repeat and take this course multiple times. And the team aspect of it, there's a lot of writing, manual and journaling, leadership, teamwork. It's an awesome program, and I'm just excited for our kids to have access to it.
Yeah.
Wow. That's fantastic. Does it have a season? I mean, is it all year they do it, or is it? I know you said it's a semester
It's
course,
pretty-
but,
I think
It's a full year.
a full year.
Oh, that's
oh,
what, yeah,
this was
that's
a
what I
full
was
year
trying to
course.
understand.
Okay, okay.
Okay.
So, I mean, pretty much if it's a team outside of school, like the school that I came from ran it as a team, and they practiced all year round. They went to off-season competitions, and I mean, it was, once we grow this, I mean, who knows,
Right.
We have to start somewhere, so.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's
Wow.
great. And it's
So
great that it's during the day and the kids have the opportunity to do that without giving up a sport or giving up the things they want to do after school. That's
Right.
great.
Right.
Any questions?
All set?
Thank you so much. It's really exciting.
Thank you. And then just as we are planning for the rest of the school year, we are looking to expand some of our CCP offerings and the faculty that has access to teach CCP here on campus. We have 3 teachers who are currently going through, they were afforded a grant through the ESE to access those CCP courses to be trained to and earn the certification to do that. They'll complete that programming in May of this school year, so they will be able to propose a course for the next school year, potentially. Continue working with personalized learning, having Jake has been an absolute a huge resource at the high school. I'm working with the 2 cohorts that we currently have, in addition to supporting any individual teachers that have requested it. And then ongoing data collection and analysis and survey of student interest. So when it comes to offering courses, we just want to make sure that we are filling in any gaps or holes that we might have, and then making sure that any classes that we maybe do currently have in our roster that really aren't garnishing a lot of interest, that we look to maybe move those aside for right now and continue to evolve.
And what's the choral course that might be offered because we think we have interest?
Songwriting.
There you go.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
yes.
we may be able to offer that this year, which we're super excited about.
And then currently, many of our members of our district leadership team have been participating in some of these like local school visits under Jared's leadership. So we just want to make sure that some of the ideas that they're bringing back and sharing with at the building level, that we can continue to explore to the benefit of our students.
Fantastic.
That's it.
Yeah, I think so. I just want to pick up on Jennifer's point. So we assess, because people will say to me, why do we offer so many classes, or why don't we offer more classes, or, and I think you look every year, right, and determine what
single year,
demand is, and can
yeah.
you just talk about that for a second?
Sure. So building the master schedule at the high school has been a pleasure for the last 9 years and a burden. I build the schedule by hand. So what that really means is I take every single student's request and I only build a course based on those individual student requests. We do not copy the schedule from the year before and then make it again. Every single year we have a different schedule. So that is quite a lengthy process. It does take time, but it does give us the most accurate representation of what our students want and what's most important to them. And then I know for sure that I'm not, I'm being also mindful of staffing, right? And where our needs are as well. So each year we evaluate the course selection guide. We talk with our department chairs. We evaluate what we currently offer. We garner feedback from our students over like from the previous year. And then that's where these two courses kind of came into play. I could recommend a lot of courses, but they may not always fit within what our, programming is for that year or what our kind of goals are for that year. And so there are courses that continue to be a part of our course selection guide, but may not run, right? There may not be enough student enrollment to make sure that that course runs. We're a very small school. High school is maybe close to 500 at this point. And so with offering so many courses and a lot of advanced courses, each student's schedule I have looked at, right, as an individual student in some capacity and make those decisions about where to place that course within the schedule based on the other requests that they have. So that's not an easy job to do, but it is important given the nature of our students and how that schedule impacts or is like a reflection of their interests, right? Of what they're looking to access, potentially a plan for their future. So all of those things are taken into consideration. The caveat to that is it doesn't give us much flexibility at, once the school year has started, because if, students want to drop a course or add another course, we may not have the room for it. So that is kind of the caveat.
And maybe this is a Jared question, I'm not sure, but
Yeah.
how do you try to group kids, so even though you don't offer songwriting one year, the next year you have
Yes.
4 or 5 kids who might want to take it, and maybe we can offer it in that situation, or how do
Yes.
you navigate
So
that?
we try to keep some courses on rotation. So if it's not offered one year, we try to reach out to those students and we'll let them know, listen, if you're a junior right now and we're not offering this course, please know that we will offer it your senior year, and then that will ensure enrollment is higher to be able to justify running the course. We do have some classes that are just pretty unique, right? Like AP Chinese, that's not a class of 20 students. But given the nature of that class, it does make sense that those course sizes are smaller, right? And could be 5 students. So we really try to work as best as possible to meet every student's needs within reason.
Amazing.
Thank you.
You're
That was
welcome.
great.
Thank you.
Okay. I can what?
Dismiss again.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, give you a minute, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Offer the opportunity.
Yes, absolutely.
Might be a better way to say it.
Thank you for coming, it looks great. Okay, Jennifer, superintendent's report, I think?
Let's keep going at 2.03. So this is just a compliance with Senate Bill 210, which is nutrition standards. So once a year, I'm to read a statement, just that ensures our compliance with the requirements and nutritional standards. So if you don't mind, I will go ahead and just read that statement, and then we report that, that you were made aware at a board meeting as we're required. Is that okay? All right, Senate Bill 210 and USDA Smart Snacks requirements dictate that snacks and beverages sold to students during the regular school day meet nutrition guidelines for total fat, saturated fat, calories, and sugar for school year 2024-2025. These nutrition guidelines also apply to the sale of food and beverages that are sold during the school day for fundraising purposes. The Chagrin Falls Exempted Village School District is compliant with this rule, as all of the snacks and beverages sold to students during the regular school day meet Senate Bill 210's nutrition requirements, or federal smart snack requirements, whichever is more restrictive. So just letting you know, Marty Goodwin is the one that oversees that compliance, and we are meeting what we're required to do. Any questions for me? We'll just do that once a year, so, okay. Because I assume we're going to continue to be compliant. As long as we're compliant, we'll do that once a year.
Absolutely.
Okay, just wanted to be clear. So 2.04 for me was just a quick check to see if there were any, if you had received any feedback regarding the school calendar. Remember, we'll vote on that on January 15th. I think it was so similar to this year's calendar that there really hasn't been a lot of comment. My comments have been that for semester classes that fall in that first half of the year, they really appreciated the extra days that they could get. So that was the only feedback I got, was that of appreciation for us looking at when those PD days were scheduled.
Okay. Did anybody hear any feedback they want to share? No? Okay, I didn't either.
Okay, so we'll move on to 2.05, which is vacancy fulfillment. I have quite a few things just to run through, and then I'm going to ask you to work with me on a calendar to make sure. But let's start with the one that I think we received today. And I don't want to take all the thunder, but Dr. Slepper has submitted his resignation effective 12/31/2024. And so I wrote just a little bit, and then if there's anything that he would like to share, we'd love to. It's gonna be a hole that we're going to need to work really hard to fill. I just wrote that thank you for your 3 years of dedicated service to the Board of Education and to our school community. Your leadership, insight, and commitment to our students and staff have made a lasting impact. While we're sad to see you leave, we are thrilled for the opportunity you have to serve in a new office and know you will continue to inspire others all to grow and thrive. We all wish you the best on this exciting new chapter in your journey. But I also do want to say it's been a real pleasure to have him on the board and to bring his experience with education to the forefront. So whenever we need to talk about something or work through something, he brings a great amount of experience to the table, and so for that you will be greatly missed. But thank you for everything you've done for us.
Yeah, he wrote a absolutely beautiful resignation letter. You will definitely be missed, and I hope that we can post this as well on the website or somewhere so people can see it, because I've been getting a few calls about what does it mean to be a board member, what do we look for in a board member, and I think that this really sums up beautifully what this role can be, and how enriching it can be, but also how important it is to our students and to our community and to our teachers. And I just really appreciate the time you took to do it, because I think it really does answer that question that a lot of people have. So thank you, and we'll miss you.
Are we voting on this? Can I vote?
No, we're not voting. No, he's an elected official, so we just smile.
I actually, if it's okay, I wrote this letter so that I could share pieces of it tonight.
Oh, great,
just as
perfect.
kind of a farewell to everyone. So I'm going to do my best to get through it. But I did want to start by saying thank you to all of you. This has been an incredible journey for me, certainly something that I didn't expect 4 years ago. But I think when you are raised in a capacity where service is something that you just do in your whole life, it becomes second nature. So it's interesting how you can settle into these things. But I'll read a little bit of this because it'll help me keep my thoughts organized. But I said that instances like tonight can be bittersweet, and while I'm continuing to serve my community in a broader capacity, I am leaving a post and colleagues that I deeply care about. Serving the Chagrin Falls community as a school board member has been a labor of love for me and a position that I will greatly miss. I'm very appreciative of my board colleagues for their work, their support, advocacy, and friendship. I've learned a tremendous amount from each of you in both current membership membership and the previous membership as well. It has been my great pleasure to work with each of you, so thank you. The Chagrin Falls community is a very special place. As an educator myself, it is rare to see the level of engagement and commitment that I have seen here. A significant portion of our success as a school district is because of the collaboration of all members within our community. I want to thank the families and the stakeholders in the district for placing their trust in me over the last 3 years. It has been my honor to serve this community. No matter our background or perspective, we all share a vision of excellence and access for all of our students. I would also like to thank our superintendent, Dr. Jennifer Penzarski, for her tireless commitment to our district. We have seen significant growth across all metrics, due in part to her vision, her plan, and a love for strategic planning and leadership. So thank you, Jennifer. We are a stronger district because of her efforts. I would also like to thank our treasurer, Ashley Brudno, for her thoughtful stewardship of our district's financial health and solvency. Our solid financial footing is a product of your steady leadership. So thank you for all of your work. And finally, I'm grateful for the administrators, the educators, the practitioners, and the support teams for making it all work. We wouldn't be who we are without your efforts and your leadership. And when I think about the educational trajectory of my own daughter, the work and advocacy of our educators gives me full confidence in the future. It is among the primary reasons why we selected this community as the place to raise her. So thank you for everything that you do every day. When I ran for this seat almost 4 years ago, I ran on a simple ideology, a belief that every student deserves a seat at the table. As a mission, our district works every day to get as close to that goal as possible. So I thank you all for your love and your faith throughout the last several years.
So if you would take out your calendars just so that we could go through the process, I'd like to just try to finalize these dates. So the Board of Education needs to fill the position 30 days from the effective date of the resignation. So we have 30 calendar days. So I've developed a timeline for which that can happen, and I'll walk you through it. And Lori, I think that's a really good idea to post the letter as part when we post the timeline. That way, at least it will all go out together, which would be a great thing to do. So I have a draft, just communication on your first paper, just to show you what a tentative timeline would be. So the resignation's effective December 31st, 2024, which means that we will communicate the application process January 2nd, 2025. Now, I know most people will still be on break and those kinds of things, but our window starts January 1st, so we want to start communicating. The process will probably end up being an online application, and we'll collect answers to questions and have information for people that are interested in being appointed to the seat on the board. From that, we will then collect those applications. The application window would actually be from January 3rd to January 21st. Now, I know that feels like a long time, or a lot of those 30 days, but again, the application is not for the weak of heart. And so I want to make sure that people have time to go through and have the time they need to prepare all of the materials and to get them to us. But there is a hard cutoff. And so the cutoff needs to be 3 p.m. on the 21st. And this will all be clearly sent, but I just want you to know how the timeline's going to work. And then the board application review, this is where I want you to check your calendars, would be Wednesday, January 22nd and we would do a 7:00 p.m. Because it's an appointment of a public official. Those would be done in executive session, but just to make sure that the January 22nd date would work to review applications, and that would be all that information that we collected from each candidate. And then what we would like to do is then we have a week. So if there's a need for second rounds or final rounds or like interviews, right, that you would want to conduct, we have a whole week to make that happen, or we could even possibly do it. What I have said is the appointment of the board member, which would be January 29th. So the following Wednesday, we would have another 7 o'clock meeting for the appointment. That's obviously action of the board. That's public. That's the board is taking action to appoint someone. But that's how I built the timeline. I stuck with Wednesdays. That also gives us within that 30-day calendar window. And that's set by the Ohio Revised Code. So anyone that would want to go and look at what that process reads in law could go and do that. But would there be any concerns with that timeline?
We keep our Wednesdays open these days, you know?
I was terribly worried, but again, I
4
wanted-
Wednesdays
this
in a
is
row.
so
Yeah.
important.
Oh, my children will have feedback.
Okay. I just want to make sure though, because I think the application process and the quality of the application that is being put out is rigorous enough that we want to give some time. So that would be what we'll do. Aaron Grube will get social media and the postings ready. I plan this will probably go out tomorrow or Friday. I mean, it's going to go out soon because we want people to know. But we also can't compete with the other vacancy posting that I'll talk about from this agenda. And yes, this one, Danielle, we get to vote on, unfortunately, because it's a retirement. But Dr. Jones submitted her letter of retirement this week, and I know she's not here tonight, but I do have some things to read about her as well. So tonight we recognize Dr. Rachel Jones, who has served as the principal of Gurnee Elementary School since 2001. Under her guidance, Gurnee has achieved numerous accolades, including the OAESA Hall of Fame Award in 2004, 2012, and 2023, and recognition as a national One School, One Book model school. Her leadership has driven consistently strong state report card results and fostered teacher achievements such as national board certifications and advanced endorsements. Dr. Jones has been instrumental in leading Gurnee through years of professional development focused on personalized learning strategies, making the school a model for other districts. Beyond the accolades, she has built a culture of respect, curiosity, and community, ensuring students' academic and social emotional growth are equally prioritized. Dr. Jones' impact extends far beyond the walls of Gurnee Elementary, and her legacy will continue to inspire educators, staff, and families for years to come. So again, we just want to thank her for her remarkable dedication and wish her all the best in future endeavors. And she did send out a letter to families on Monday, and then we sent out a basic outline of what that process would be. I'd just like to talk you through it. I know we've talked about this at a couple board meetings, but again, these timelines will be going out soon. So first, we'll start with the interim position, because we'll have an interim between whenever we can get a person started and in the end of the school year. So that's a separate position from the actual building principal position. Now, a couple questions come up when you talk about the interim. Can it be internal? Yes, but remember, it's its own position, so the person would be taking an interim job for the remainder of the year. The second question that comes up is, can that person apply for the principal's job? Absolutely. There's nothing restricting that, but typically interims, since they are only a partial year position, would be maybe a retired principal, superintendent of some sort. So that process is going to go quick. Our goal would be to have someone start in January. The earlier the better. I would ask for board approval probably at that 15th board meeting, which is our organizational and our regular meeting night. So do you have any questions about the interim process? Those postings will go out this week as well. We're just trying to keep them give it a little space so that people can see both. So now I'll walk you through the principal process because they're going to overlap. And so what will happen with the principal process is that we will have kind of a round table in a sense that we'll get together to actually make that principal profile. So what are we looking for in a new principal? Some of you may have been involved with superintendent searches. Real head principal searches work the same way. And for something of this caliber, we want to make sure that we're really targeted on what type of leader we're looking for Gurnee Elementary. So the first one would be on January 14th, and that would be for Gurnee families. And it will be scheduled like we do the roundtable, so there'll be a couple times to choose from. And that flyer and information will be going out very soon. The next one, then once we gather that, we can start compiling it. We won't have a lot of time, but then we can take that back to the Gurnee teachers and staff. So on our PD day on the 17th, we'll conduct the roundtable with the teachers and the staff, and we'll have the feedback from the families as well. And we'll really begin to get their input and refine how that posting is going to look. I anticipate that once we get all of that information on the 17th, that the posting for the Gurnee principal position and when we can start accepting applications would be no later than February 3rd. You want to keep a really tight timeline for posting because when it gets later in the season, the hiring season, if you will, especially with really strong administrators, it's really hard for them to leave their current position, and they want to make sure that there's enough time that their current district could replace them, right? So we want to make sure that we're honoring that to get the best applicant pool that we can. So February 3rd, I think, is when we would begin. If we use this timeline, and again, these might be a little rough based on how things go. We might post earlier if we get all that put together. But I would anticipate that the deadline for application would be Monday, February 24th. The leadership team will start reviewing and screening those that week. And then also just know internal and external candidates would apply together. So there's no differentiation. Everybody applies together. We look at all the candidates together. And if you have questions about that process, Amanda is a great person to talk to because she went through it for the high school. But then on the, about the week of March 4th, we anticipate the leadership teams doing the first rounds, and those would be administrators, myself. And so once we screen the first rounds, we try to get it down to about 3 people. If you remember when Monica Asher, we did kind of a compressed, when she left the high school, we did a compressed process. And so the second round is when we invite committees, interview committees of teachers, maybe like the BLT, support organizations, parents to be part of that second screening. And so I anticipate that that will happen somewhere around, right now, I have tentatively March 11th and March 13th. And then if we need to do a final round, we can do it that week of March 17th. And a final round may look like these 2 candidates are really close and we want to put them in the building. And so we might be able to do, I've done that before when we have the time. And so if everything stays on track, I would work with the candidate to make an offer and then make a recommendation to you at the March 19th board meeting. And given the time of year, given what the applicant pool could be, we might run late, and that's okay. And then we have spring break. So if we run late, we might be looking at an April hire as well, but that still puts us well within the window of what I think we would need to get the best applicants internally and externally for the position. And then if we do, the latest date for hiring that I would like to use would be April 23rd, which would be our tentatively, we'll approve all of our board meetings in January, but if we follow our current schedule, that would roughly be the day that we would hire. So I know I went through that pretty fast. There's 2 different processes, but I think we knew that this would probably be coming and we are ready to put everything out. Do you have any questions about those timelines? Your event is really just the board doing the approval of the recommendation and looking over the final candidate information. That's your role. We'll do everything on our end to get you the best candidate based on the profile that we're going to create together. And then with Dr. Jones, we will do a formal recognition of some sort. We do have a really nice kind of breakfast at the at the end of the year that we recognize all retirees, and we invite people back who go mid-year, but I'm sure that there will be some other things that are put in place for her. But we always honor the person's wishes as well. So they're active in what they want us to do for them. So I think that's all I have about vacancies. Besides these two, we will have a couple other postings this week. And if you're interested in substituting in anything, we always have a need for that too, and we welcome those applications, and all of those are online on how to have those, how to find vacancies and how to apply for them. Any questions about 2.05? Okay, thanks.
Okay, public participation, I think. Ashley, do we have anybody signed up?
We do not.
Okay, I will skip that long disclosure. Okay, we're on to the superintendent's recommendations.
And so let me explain that a new process will be done for this. How it will work is that Lori, as board president, will read the recommended action and make the motion. Then Ashley will take the roll, and then Lori will say, is there any discussion? And then we can discuss anything that's under that number. Does
So
that
I
make
said, don't I
sense?
ask for a second first?
We do motion and second, then discussion, then the
Then a
roll.
roll, okay.
Roll is the vote.
Roll is the vote.
Okay.
So just, it's a different process than what we did before, and that's right. The two motions, and the motion is what's written in the recommended action.
Perfect. Okay, so we have some policies. I'd like to make a motion to approve the following policies be adopted and revised as presented. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any questions or comments? Okay, Ashley, please take the roll.
Mrs. Hoy.
Yes.
Mrs. Miller.
Yes.
Dr. Sabo.
Yes.
Dr. Schlepper.
Yes.
Mrs. Bendel.
Yes. Okay, I'd like to make a motion to, this is for 4.02, new course proposal. I'd like to make a motion to adopt the following courses to be offered at Chagrin Falls High School for the 2025 through 2026 school year. Do I have a second?
I second.
Do we have any discussion? Ashley?
Mrs. Miller.
Yes.
Dr. Sabo.
Yes.
Dr. Schlepper.
Yes.
Mrs. Bendel.
Yes.
Mrs. Hoy.
Yes.
4.03 is retirement. I'd like to make a motion to approve the retirement of the following employee. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And the
Any
discussion is just to note it's Rachel Jones, effective February 1st, 2025.
Okay, Ashley, please take the roll.
Dr. Sabo.
Yes.
Dr. Schlepper.
Yes.
Mrs. Bendel.
Yes.
Mrs. Hoy.
Yes.
Mrs. Miller.
Yes.
Okay, for 4.04, this is certified personnel substitute teacher. I'd like to make a motion to approve the following certified substitute teachers for the 2024-2025 school year, contingent upon meeting all requirements. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Questions or comments? Ashley?
Dr. Schlepper.
Yes.
Mrs. Bendel.
Yes.
Mrs. Hoy.
Yes.
Mrs. Miller.
Yes.
Dr. Sabo.
Yes.
Okay. 4.05, certified personnel, additional hours. I'd like to make a motion to approve the following certified employees at the current contractual rate for additional hours as presented. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Discussion? Ashley?
Dr. Sabo.
Yes.
Dr. Schlepper.
Yes.
Mrs. Bendel.
Yes.
Mrs. Hoy.
Yes.
Mrs. Miller.
Yes.
4.06 is a motion to approve the following certified employees at the current contractual rate for supplemental service and co-curricular contracts for the 2024-2025 school year as presented. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Questions? Ashley?
Mrs. Bendel.
Yes.
Mrs. Hoy.
Yes.
Mrs. Miller.
Yes.
Dr. Sabo.
Yes.
Dr. Schlepper.
Yes.
4.07 is certified personnel long-term substitutes. I'd like to make a motion to approve the following certified employee at the current contractual rate for the 2024-2025 school year, with all fringe benefits as defined in the current Chagrin Falls Education Association negotiated agreement, contingent upon meeting all requirements. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Comments? Questions? Ashley?
Mrs. Hoy?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller?
Yes.
Dr. Sabo?
Yes.
Dr. Schlepper?
Yes.
Mrs. Bendel?
Yes. 4.09 is classified personnel. Motion to approve the following classified substitutes contingent upon meeting all of the requirements. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Ashley?
Okay,
Did I
this
skip-
is 4.9, but I believe we skipped 4.8, so we can do
I'll
4.9 and go back to
four
4.8.
eight. Okay. So you want to take the roll for 4.9 and then I'll go back
Yeah,
to
who
4.8?
who seconded 9? I apologize. I was confused.
Who
for a
just
second.
seconded?
I believe Lauren
okay.
did.
Lauren, yeah.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Okay, so 4.08.
Okay, well, this is 4.09.
Oh, okay.
Dr. Sabo?
Yes.
Dr. Schlepper?
Yes.
Mrs. Bendel?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoy?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so now we're back to 4.08.
Yes.
Sorry about that. Classified personnel contracts. This is a motion to approve the following classified staff contracts for the 2024-2025 school year, contingent upon meeting all requirements. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Discussion? Ashley?
Mrs. Miller?
Yes.
Dr. Sabo?
Yes.
Dr. Schlepper?
Yes.
Mrs. Bendel?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoy?
Yes.
Okay, so we're on to 4.10, which is classified personnel event helpers. Motion to approve the following classified event helpers contingent upon meeting all requirements. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Questions or comments? Ashley?
Dr. Schlepper?
Yes.
Mrs. Bendel?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoy?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller?
Yes.
Dr. Sabo?
Yes.
Okay, so 4.11 is classified personnel resignation. A motion to accept the following classified staff resignation. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Questions or comments? Ashley?
Mrs. Bendel?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoy?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller?
Yes.
Dr. Sabo?
Yes.
Dr. Schlepper?
Yes.
4.12, contract. This is a motion to approve the agreement with Soliant for speech and language pathology 3 days per week at Gurney Elementary School, effective January 6th, 2025 through January 5th, 2025. Do I have a second?
Through June
June,
5th, 2025.
I'm having a great day here. June 5th, 2025. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Questions or comments? Ashley?
Mrs. Hoy?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller?
Yes.
Dr. Sabo?
Yep.
Dr. Schlepper?
Yes.
Mrs. Bendel?
Yes. 4.13, Contract Educational Service Center of the Western Reserve. I'd like to make a motion to approve the service agreement with the Educational Service Center of the Western Reserve in the amount not to exceed $1,500.00 for the purpose of mediation support services as determined by the superintendent. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any questions or comments? Ashley?
Mrs. Miller?
Yes.
Dr. Sabo?
Yes.
Dr. Schlepper?
Yes.
Mrs. Bendel?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoy?
Yes.
4.14, Contract Infinite Campus. I'd like to make a motion to approve the service amendment with Infinite Campus as presented. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Questions or comments? Ashley?
Dr. Sabo?
Yes.
Dr. Schlepper?
Yes.
Mrs. Bendel?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoy?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller?
Yes.
We'll continue with the same process for number 5.
Okay, we're on to the treasurer's recommendations. 5.01 is equipment disposal. I'd like to make a motion to approve the disposal of equipment as listed in the attachment. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Questions, comments? Ashley?
Yeah, I actually have a comment I just wanted to point out. The reason there is a second attachment on there is because typically with our buses, we trade those in. This one, we did not do it as a trade-in, and we have an agreement with an organization to do an auction, which is within the Ohio Revised Code guidelines. So just want to point that out. Okay, Dr. Schlepper?
Yes.
Mrs. Bendel?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoy?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller?
Yes.
Dr. Sabo?
Yes.
5.02 is a then and now certificate. Motion to approve the then and now certificate as listed. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And Ashley, can you just explain again what a then and now certificate is?
So then
everyone
and now
knows?
certificate, yeah, absolutely. Ohio Revised Code requires that the purchase order be dated prior to the invoice. Sometimes things fall through the cracks, particularly with purchases that are routine because people just sometimes think that the purchase order is out there. Sometimes the company will have a purchase order number even when they send the invoice, and it was a prior purchase order that maybe got closed, or maybe, somebody put something on an incorrect account, so it kind of slowed down the process because I sent it back to them and didn't approve it immediately. So things happen, things fall through the cracks, and as a caveat to the law, in order to allow us to take care of those types of things, when things fall through the cracks and when there's an emergency situation, so as not to hinder us and not be able to do things that we need to get done, it allows us to make those purchases with a certificate from the treasurer saying at the time that the purchase was incurred, and now when I'm signing it, that we had the money in the coffers to pay the bill.
Understood.
That's all those are.
Want to take the roll?
Mrs. Bendel.
Yes.
Mrs. Hoy.
Yes.
Mrs. Miller.
Yes.
Dr. Sabo.
Yes.
Dr. Schlepper.
Yes.
Okay, resolution 5.03, this is a motion to participate in tax advances from Cuyahoga County. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any questions or comments? You want to give us a rundown on what that is?
Sure. As part of the process for our tax collections, we get advances from the county. In order to receive those advances and not just wait until everything is settled and just get the one settlement, we have to request to participate in the advance program, and I need your approval in order to make that request.
So this is something we do every year?
We
or
do it every
twice a
year.
Every year? Any other questions? Ashley?
Okay, Mrs. Hoy.
Did we second already? Yeah.
Yes, Dr. Schlepper.
Oh,
seconded.
thanks. I forgot. Yes.
Mrs. Miller.
Yes.
Dr. Sabo.
Yes.
Dr. Schlepper.
Yes.
Mrs. Bendel.
Yes. And I think that's it.
Public participation, no.
Any other business we have? No? And public participation, we don't have anybody signed up for a non-agenda item, do we?
I don't believe
Nope.
so, unless Jared wants to talk.
He's not here anymore. Okay, so with no public participation, and Lauren, you want to?
I'd like to make a motion to enter into executive session in accordance with Ohio Revised Code 121.22 for the sole purpose of the consideration of the following matters: to consider one or more, as applicable, of the checkmarked items with respect to a public employee or official, and checked our appointment, employment, and compensation of a public employee or official. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mrs. Miller.
Yes.
Dr. Sabo.
Yes.
Dr. Schlepper.
Yes.
Mrs. Bendel.
Yes.
Mrs. Hoy.
Yes.
Okay, and we will not take action after executive session. Our next meeting is on January 15th. It will be our organizational meeting. It'll be at 6:30. Note the time change in the Chagrin Falls High School Library here. And then we have our regular meeting immediately after that starting at 7 o'clock, also here in the high school library. Okay.
We will not take action after exec session.